I'm 86 years old, and the single most powerful thing you can do for your heart has nothing to do with expensive supplements, complicated diets, or the latest cardiology research. It has to do with what happens at your dinner table every single night, in one rule so simple that most people dismiss it before they ever give it a real chance. I want to talk about what actually protects the heart, not what the commercials say, not what the wellness industry packages and sells. What genuinely, biologically, measurably keeps the heart muscle strong, the arteries clear, and the inflammatory cascade that destroys cardiovascular tissue from ever getting started in the first place. The rule is this: stop eating 3 hours before you sleep. That's it. That was my rule. Every night, for 55 years, dinner was finished at least 3 hours before I laid down. And I want to explain to you why that simple window of time does something that no pill has ever fully replicated. Most people think heart disease is about cholesterol. That's the surface level. That's the version of the story that gets told in a 15-minute doctor's appointment. And cholesterol does matter. But what people don't understand is that cholesterol is a symptom of something deeper. The real driver of cardiovascular damage is inflammation. Chronic, low-grade, systemic inflammation that silently erodes the inner lining of your arterial walls over decades. And one of the most powerful triggers of that inflammatory process is something almost nobody talks about. It is the metabolic state your body enters when you sleep with undigested food still moving through your system. Here is what's actually happening. When you eat, your body shifts into what scientists call a postprandial state. Blood sugar rises, insulin is released, your digestive organs are working, your liver is processing, your lymphatic system is actively transporting fats absorbed from your gut into your bloodstream. This entire process, depending on the meal, takes anywhere from 2 to 5 hours to reach a stable point. Now here is what most people miss. Sleep is not just rest. Sleep is one of the most metabolically active and critically important repair cycles your body runs. During deep sleep, your cardiovascular system undergoes processes that are nothing short of extraordinary. Blood pressure drops. The endothelium, the delicate single-cell thick lining inside every artery in your body, goes through repair cycles. Inflammatory markers are cleared. The lymphatic system in the brain flushes metabolic waste. Cortisol drops to its lowest point. Growth hormone surges. This is when healing happens. But here's the problem. When you carry active digestion into sleep, you are forcing two enormous metabolic demands to compete with each other. Your body cannot fully commit to deep cardiovascular repair while it is simultaneously managing a postprandial blood sugar spike, elevated triglycerides from a recent meal, and active insulin signaling. The repair gets compromised, not completely, not catastrophically on any single night, but night after night, year after year, decade after decade. The compounding effect on arterial health is profound. And it goes even deeper than that. The postprandial state is not metabolically neutral. When blood sugar rises after a meal, a process called glycation begins. Glycation is what happens when sugar molecules attach to proteins, including the proteins that make up your arterial walls. The result is what researchers call advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These compounds stiffen arterial tissue, reduce elasticity, and trigger oxidative stress directly within the endothelium. When this happens, while you are awake and moving, your body has mechanisms to manage it. Circulation is active. Antioxidant enzymes are engaged. But when glycation is occurring in the middle of the night, during what should be deep restorative sleep, the management is far less efficient. The damage accumulates in ways that standard cholesterol testing will never catch until it's already advanced. But the real power in this simple rule goes even deeper than the chemistry. It touches something fundamental about how the body was designed to operate rhythmically. Every cell in your body contains what are called circadian clock genes. These genes govern when your body should be doing what. They regulate insulin sensitivity, inflammatory signaling, cellular repair, fat oxidation, and cardiovascular function, all based on a 24-hour cycle that is synchronized primarily to light and critically to the timing of food. When you eat late at night, you're sending your circadian system a signal that conflicts with the signal being sent by darkness and melatonin. Your pancreas, your liver, your fat cells, your arterial smooth muscle, they all receive the message that it's time to process nutrients at the exact moment the rest of your biology is trying to initiate repair mode. This conflict is called circadian misalignment, and the cardiovascular consequences of chronic circadian misalignment are increasingly well understood. It raises blood pressure, It increases inflammatory cytokines. It impairs glucose tolerance. It dysregulates lipid metabolism. All of the mechanisms that directly build toward heart disease. What most people miss is that the heart itself has a circadian rhythm. The cardiac muscle cells have their own internal clocks. The timing of when those cells receive nutrients, when they process fatty acids for fuel, when they go through their own repair cycles, all of this is governed by circadian biology. Eating close to sleep doesn't just affect your metabolism in a general sense, it directly disrupts the cardiac clock. Research has shown that mice with disrupted cardiac clocks develop heart failure faster than controls. Shift workers who chronically eat and sleep at misaligned times have significantly elevated rates of heart disease. This is not coincidence. This is the circadian machinery of the heart being interrupted repeatedly for years. Now, let's go to the practical layer, because this is where the rule becomes real. 3 hours is the key number for a specific reason. It takes roughly that long for the most acute phase of postprandial blood sugar and triglyceride elevation to resolve. It's enough time for the first stages of gastric emptying to complete for most moderate meals. It allows insulin to come back down toward baseline. It gives the liver time to begin shifting from glucose processing back toward ketogenesis and fatty acid oxidation, the fuel state that is most favorable for the heart during sleep, because the heart actually prefers fatty acids as its primary fuel during low demand periods. When you sleep in your fasted state, your heart is running efficiently on the fuel it prefers. When you sleep in a postprandial state, it is running on glucose and managing an environment of elevated triglycerides, suppressed fat oxidation, and elevated inflammatory signaling. And here's what connects all of this to something even more fundamental. The heart is the most metabolically active organ in your body per unit of tissue. It never rests. It beats 100,000 times per day. It requires a constant supply of clean fuel and a constantly low inflammatory environment. It is not resilient in the way that, say, the liver is resilient. The liver can regenerate. The heart cannot regenerate meaningfully. When cardiac tissue is damaged, it is replaced by scar tissue. That is it. The heart has almost no second chances, which means that protecting it is not about dramatic interventions. It is about the cumulative quality of the metabolic environment you maintain around it night after night for decades. This is why the rule works, not because of any single night, but because of the compounding. Because every night that you sleep in a low insulin, low inflammatory, near fasted metabolic state is a night where your cardiac endothelium gets a full repair cycle, where your arterial walls have the metabolic space to address the micro damage of daily life, where glycation is minimized, where your cardiac circadian clock runs in alignment with your sleep biology instead of fighting against it. Multiply that by 365 nights. Multiply that by 55 years. You are now talking about tens of thousands of full repair cycles versus tens of thousands of compromised ones. The difference in cardiovascular outcomes is not subtle. Most people want to know what they can add to protect their heart. Another supplement, another food, another pill. And sometimes those things have real value. But almost nobody asks what they can remove from the nighttime environment to stop interfering with the heart's own repair process. The 3-hour rule is not addition, it is subtraction. It is clearing the field so that the most sophisticated cardiovascular repair system ever engineered, the one already inside you, can actually do its job without obstruction. There is also an aspect of this that connects to arterial stiffness in a way that deserves attention. One of the primary causes of age-related arterial stiffening is the loss of nitric oxide production in the endothelium. Nitric oxide is the molecule that keeps arteries flexible, lowers blood pressure, prevents platelets from clumping, and inhibits the smooth muscle proliferation that narrows arterial walls. The endothelium produces nitric oxide most efficiently during periods of low oxidative stress and low inflammatory load. The postprandial state, particularly after high-fat or high-sugar meals, is one of the most potent suppressors of endothelial nitric oxide production known to science. Every night you sleep with active digestion is a night of reduced nitric oxide production during the window when your arteries most need it. Over decades, this contributes directly to the stiffening, the narrowing, the elevated resting blood pressure that we have come to accept as normal aging. It is not inevitable. It is, in significant part, the product of a metabolic environment we have the power to influence. The practical application is simpler than anything else I could give you. Set your final mealtime. Protect it. Make it a boundary that you keep with the same consistency that you keep any other health practice. Not because you are dieting, not because you are trying to lose weight, though that may happen, but because you are creating every single night the conditions under which your heart can repair itself fully. You are giving your cardiovascular system what it was designed to have: a long, clean, quiet metabolic window in which to do the work that keeps it running. Your arteries were not designed to be processing last night's pasta at 2 in the morning. Your cardiac endothelium was not designed to navigate a triglyceride surge at midnight. Your circadian cardiovascular biology was not designed for the modern habit of eating late, sleeping shortly after, and repeating it for 40 years. But the design is still there. The repair mechanisms are still there. The circadian cardiac machinery is still functional. All it needs is the space to operate. Give your heart 3 hours every night. That is the rule. That is what I followed. And at 86, with a heart that still runs clean and strong, I will tell you that the most powerful thing I ever did for my cardiovascular health cost me nothing. It required no prescription. It had no side effects. It only required consistency in the understanding that what you don't do in the hours before sleep matters just as much as anything you ever swallow. There is one more layer here that I don't want to leave out because it explains something people often overlook. When you consistently finish eating 3 hours before sleep, something else begins to happen after a few weeks. Your appetite signals start to reorganize. Your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, begin operating more in alignment with daylight hours rather than extending their influence into the late evening. Ghrelin, which drives hunger, starts declining earlier in the evening. Leptin, which signals satiety, becomes more sensitive. What this means practically is that after a few weeks of following this rule, you start feeling hungry at night. The late night hunger that most people experience and assume is normal, it is not a physiological requirement. It is a conditioned response that was created by the habit of eating late. Remove the habit, and within weeks, the hunger signal follows. Your biology adapts to the window you give it, and it does so remarkably quickly. This matters for the heart, for a reason that goes beyond the immediate metabolic effects. When your hunger and satiety hormones are running in a rhythm that matches the light-dark cycle, active during the day, quiet at night, your entire hormonal environment shifts toward one that is more favorable for cardiovascular health. Insulin sensitivity improves, not just at night, but throughout the day. Cortisol rhythm normalizes. The chronic low-level stress signaling that comes from metabolic disruption begins to quiet. And the heart, which is exquisitely sensitive to the hormonal environment surrounding it, begins to operate in a cleaner, lower-stressed biochemical landscape around the clock. People spend enormous amounts of money and attention on what to eat, and that matters. Food quality is real. But the when has been consistently underestimated in public health conversations, and the cardiovascular consequences of that underestimation are visible in the disease statistics of any modern society. The timing of food is not a minor variable. It is one of the primary signals that sets the metabolic and inflammatory tone of the entire next 12 hours. And for the heart, which has no days off and no ability to regenerate when it takes damage, those 12 hours of overnight repair are not optional. They are everything. The rule is not a diet. It is not a deprivation. It is a restoration of the rhythm that the cardiovascular system was built to operate within. 3 hours of clearance before sleep, a consistent time, a protected window, that's all. 55 years of that simple discipline, and the heart you carry into old age will reflect every night you honored it.